Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Get him on IV fluid.
Milwaukee Emergency Center for Animals Television is brought to you by Animal Fairy Charities, a premier organization focusing on animal welfare while teaching compassion to young children through education, experience, and leadership. For Pet's Sake Dog Training, Bichon and Little Buddies Rescue, and Camp Bow Wow, premier doggy day and overnight camps.
Fozzie is a 10-month-old Lakeland Terrier that presented yesterday actually for being very, very sick. They couldn't actually put their finger on it. They just said he was at daycare the day before, came home acting a little bit strange. His coat was wet when they picked him up, so they thought he was maybe playing out in the rain because it had rained that afternoon. And then overnight, he really wasn't interested in eating, and by Saturday morning when they presented yesterday, they were really worried about him because they said he was not acting himself, he was shaking, he was kind of pawing at his mouth and lip smacking. We looked at him, and at first we really couldn't get an idea what was going on. We ran all blood work on him, and because he's such a young dog, we weren't suspecting to find anything. But we just wanted to make sure his liver, kidneys, and everything else was okay. We took an abdominal radiograph and a chest radiograph, didn't find anything. Put him on IV fluids, and later on that day took him out again because he was pawing at his mouth a lot. And Dr. Seno found that on exam of his mouth, there was like burn-like lesions all inside his mouth. So we did a little bit closer exam and started realizing that his whole nose area was turning necrotic. You can see how necrotic his nose is. The nose part was falling off. Inside his tongue, his whole tongue, 3/4 of his tongue is necrotic, so pieces are starting to come off. If you just touch it, the tongue is falling to pieces. There's lesions on the side of his mouth, underneath his jaw, and then he's got all necrotic areas on all 4 paws and also on his tail. So we found out the owners started checking around their house and they couldn't find anything, and because he had been to doggy daycare, they went over to doggy daycare, and the daycare admitted to them that someone had put disinfectant into the cleaning solution, and they put too much in. They didn't dilute it out, and this dog had played in that kennel right afterwards, so he's actually got bleach-like lesions all over his body. So we're concerned, but in the same breath, we're thinking he's going to have a full recovery because they caught it so quickly, and they just said, something's wrong with my dog, and the daycare admitted to it, so we found out the name of the disinfectant, which is pretty powerful stuff. But we're going to check on him, and we're going to put a scope down him and just a little bit just to make sure that his esophagus hasn't been affected too. I want to do as light sedation as possible. Now we're going to intubate, get the tube in. You can see how bad the tongue is now, all completely burned. And what we're trying to determine is if it's burned in the back of the throat, down the esophagus. That's the most important thing. All right, now we're going to put the scope. It's the endoscope. It's our small one. We're going to put it into the mouth and then down into the esophagus. So that's the beginning of the esophagus, nice and pink. That's the nasogastric tube that's going down the esophagus into the stomach. And it does not look burned at all, so good news for this dog. And then we're going to look a little bit into the nose area here. Nope. Nice mucosa, not burned farther than, just the tip of the nose is all burnt, but nothing inside the nose, so this is all good news. So we're going to bandage the legs up, clean them up, all the lesions on the skin, and hopefully we should be able to save this dog.
Milwaukee Emergency Center for Animals Television is brought to you by Animal Fairy Charities, a premier organization focusing on animal welfare while teaching compassion to young children. For Pet's Sake Dog Training, Bichon and Little Buddies Rescue, and Camp Bow Wow, premier doggy day and overnight camps. And now, a word from our sponsors.
At Metropolitan Fence, we have been keeping your children and pets safe in southeastern Wisconsin for over 27 years. We offer a full line of residential and commercial fencing, from vinyl, wood, ornamental, and chain link. For a free estimate, please call us at 262-547-6001 or visit us online at metrofence.biz. And remember, we are always on the level.
For over a decade, Fetch magazine has examined the unique bond humans have with their canine companions by publishing popular dog-related topics. With a strong commitment to dogs in need, Fetch also prints local adoptables in each issue, supplies affordable advertising to businesses, and gives rescues 30% off of ads. This year, Fetch is offering $15 subscriptions for your convenience. For more information, visit www.fetchmag.com or pick up your free copy at a local pet establishment near you. Go Fetch!
Boarding, grooming, training, and more. When it comes to your pet, Animal Motel is their home away from home. At Animal Motel, we offer a top-of-the-line facility with boarding suites for both dogs and cats, outdoor play yards, a training hall, and so much more. Whether they're here for obedience training, grooming, or an extended stay, we promise your dog and cat will be part of our family. Animal Motel. Personalized care for your precious pets.
Looking to get some training for your dog? For Pet's Sake is your one-stop dog training center. We offer all-inclusive obedience training, canine sports training, specialty classes, and more. We provide training classes in 3 convenient locations with our main facility in Mugwanago, which boasts a fully matted 5,200 square foot training hall. While in Mugwanago, check out our Bichon Buddy Rescue and take home your new pet. Bichon and Little Buddies Rescue takes in Bichons, other small dog breeds, and cats that need to be rehomed for various reasons.
This one we're going to do an echocardiogram on. Yanni is a doggy that came in last night. He's male neutered, but he presented last night in severe respiratory distress. And they took radiographs. He had a heart murmur, and they took radiographs, and it showed infiltrates in the lungs. that are consistent with pulmonary edema or water in the lungs due to heart failure. Oh my goodness, very loud heart murmur. We're suspecting, because he's a small breed dog, we're suspecting it's going to be mitral regurg. So that's a bad valve. And so if the valve is real knobby and isn't closing properly, then the fluid will go backwards instead of going out of the heart, and it backs up into the lungs and then floods the lungs, and then they're gasping for breath and can't breathe. So we're going to go and take him and do an echo. Pull his arm up. So I'm going to put a little alcohol on there. And then get a picture of what's going on inside his heart. So that's his aorta and left atrium. They're supposed to be 1-to-1. And as you can see, this is much bigger than the aorta. This is much bigger than this. So that's measurement of the aorta and the left atrium. So he has mitral regurg. And we treat a lot of these dogs. He's a little bit on the younger side. But a lot of these dogs will live another 2-3 years even on medications. It's about the same medications as they use in people. It's a diuretic, and we'll get him on medications and hopefully prolong his life for a while longer, but he can lead a normal, healthy life. This is Hector. Hector is a 10-year-old little turtle that just has never grown to the right side. You can see he doesn't like to be picked up very well. He is got infections all over his body. He's edematous. He's got all redness all over his body, starting from the neck all the way around. And he's been sick for a long time. His food source was very poor. He was just eating pellets, and that was it. And they need a huge variety of food, vegetables and pellets and fish and different things. That's why he wasn't growing. We helped him get by that, and he had actually come in the first time because he had gotten caught in his filter and his leg was infected. That since has healed, but now we're getting all the secondary affections to very poor conditions. I'm just worried he's gonna bite me right now, so I have to be a little careful. So what we're trying to do is we're soaking him to rehydrate him, and then we want to start treating him with antibiotics again, and hopefully we can bring him around, but he's in pretty poor condition right now.
So this is Stella. Stella and her mom went for a walk yesterday. They went exploring in the woods. Stella came back with a whole bunch of burrs and vegetative matter all caught up in her fur. She chewed some of them out herself, and Mom took some out, and she's been gagging and coughing all night, unable to get comfortable. So we assume she has a severely irritated throat, and we're going to take a look down there after she's been sedated. We're going to take some x-rays to make sure there's nothing that's been sucked down into her lungs. So we got a good look down Stella's throat, and we found that there was no foreign material like burrs or anything, but there was a tremendous amount of swelling around the vocal folds, which probably would progress and lead to some breathing difficulties. We took a set of x-rays to look at her lungs, and the lungs are clear. These are her x-rays over here. And so we're comforted by the fact that she didn't suck anything down into her lungs. So we've given her some medication to bring down the swelling in her throat, and we're going to watch her for a number of hours to make sure that the cough goes away and she otherwise is able to rest comfortably, and then she should be able to go home later this afternoon.
They brought Peeve in because their vet had recommended to come over here because he was thinking obstruction. They kept Peeve in very good conditions. Everything was perfect. He was eating good food. He had the light system set up. You know, bearded dragons take a lot of UV light and the proper temperature regulation, and they're desert animals, so they don't need a lot of humidity, but everything has to be pretty much perfect. The only thing is that a lot of the pet shops sell the sand that they put on the bottom of for the substrate. And a lot of people don't realize that when they're eating their crickets or mealworms or whatever they're eating and consuming, so when they're eating it off the sand, sometimes they'll pick that sand up because it's part of the food source. And people don't realize, they tell you at pet shops that that is dissolvable, don't worry about it, you know, they won't consume it. Well, they do, as they soon found out, because he got impacted with it. So it impacted the intestinal loops to the point that she went off her food and became lethargic, and everything was just spiraling down. The only way out of this was surgery, and surgery is a big deal in these guys. When you're thinking about an intestines this thin, you're opening this up, taking the obstruction out of this lizard, and then you're suturing the intestines back up. And that's a big deal, because what can happen is once you put the sutures in, it causes a secondary obstruction because you're closing down these small, little, tiny intestinal loops. So it's risky. So we said, we'll try to perform the surgery. If it's successful, we'll see what happens. It was successful. They went in, opened up. As you saw, the incision line was pretty large. They were able to open up the intestines, get the sand out of there. That was like a clump of almost concrete by that time. And take it out, remove it, suture the intestines back together, and suture the abdominal wall back together.
Not often at all that these guys go through surgery and make it. Yeah, and she did. She did.
The problem is that it took 2 weeks for her to recover. I mean, it was daily where we said, I don't know if she's going to make it. They kept syringing her and syringe feeding her, and then asked me to do an ultrasound and said she's not passing stools. I said, well, that's not good, but we didn't want to give up on her because of the fact that otherwise she was doing okay. She was acting pretty normal. So we kept her on heat support, and finally one day it was the Peeve stool party, we called it, or fecal party, because she had a huge stool, and everybody was so excited because it took 2 weeks. Everything is so slow in lizards, you know. It's not like a dog or cat or person where you eat food after surgery and then within 2 or 3 days it's supposed to move out and then you can go home. Well, not in a lizard. But once she had the stool, she never turned back. The only problem is once they start getting syringe fed, some of these guys, as Sheila knows, Sheila had a lizard that she syringe fed, and she's
2 years later, and I'm still syringe feeding.
So they're kind of odd, and we're not sure what the reason is, but for some reason they seem to enjoy the syringe feedings. And now we're trying to get her, which we found out it was a her, because we saw the ovaries and uterine loops in there. Anyhow, today we decided, well, let's call the owner. Of course.
We were very excited.
Excited. They said, "Are you kidding? This is."
Yeah. We had no idea we'd get her back.
So reunion with the owner. Peeve is going home and going to enjoy her life. So this is good.
PetSake is your one-stop dog training center. We offer all-inclusive obedience training, canine sports training, specialty classes, and more. We provide training classes in 3 convenient locations with our main facility in McGuanago, which boasts a fully matted 5,200 square foot training hall.
Carpet City Flooring Center, our prices will floor you.
Simply the best selection, the best service, and the best prices available anywhere. At Carpet City Flooring Center, our prices will floor you. Stop in by July 30th and get an additional 10% off. Simply the best selection, the best service, and the best prices available anywhere. At Carpet City Flooring Center, our prices will floor you. Stop in by July 30th and get an additional 10% off.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Lucroy, professional baseball player. I'd like to thank Mecca and Dr. Lichtenberger for taking care of my dog Dash and helping him out with some immunization stuff. I'm honored to get such good medical care, and I'm proud to be part of the Mecca TV show.
So Belle is a 10-year-old female, intact little doggy, a Maltese that was used for breeding for about 9 years now. And ever since she was about 1 year of age, they were having puppies every single year, which is not a really good idea, especially they were backyard breeders, meaning they didn't really know what they were doing and ran into many issues. She had her first litter, all the puppies had died, and then the second litter, they lost a couple puppies, and they were doing it mostly for making money. But you soon realize that it's a dog and it's a body, so they didn't realize that you have to actually take care of the dog and not have puppies every single year just to make money, because that's not the intent. That's not why the dog was born, actually. You should let the dog reach about a couple years of age before you have the first litter, and then give the dog a break for a year, and maybe in its lifetime have 2-3 litters and know what you're doing, and realize that if they run into problems, you're going to have to seek veterinarian care. We suspect now that this dog has a mild infection in the uterus, or maybe even cancer in the uterus, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to go in and spay her. After about 9 litters now, we talked this owner into going in and spaying the dog. So hence, people shouldn't just be having dogs and just breeding them, because they're going to run into problems like this dog, so that the dog can have a normal life from now on in.
Oh, you're so good for this now. do the same thing with this side. We just got out of surgery. She did very, very well. The uterus for her age actually looks really good. Didn't see any signs of a tumor or cancer or anything like that, or a pyometra, so an infection. So she kind of dodged a bullet on that one. She did really well. She's waking up right now, so hopefully all goes well after this.
Today's show was brought to you by Animal Fairy Charities, a premier organization focusing on animal welfare while teaching compassion to young children. For Pet's Sake Dog Training, Bichon and Little Buddies Rescue, and Camp Bow Wow, premier doggy day and overnight camps.